I notice when you put electrical foods in your body and, the sun being a mammal, you take in electrotherapy from the sun rays, right? Um, it magnifies you, which means it pulls out your pores, which means your skins get darker, right? Um, you tend to attract, more tinted women, like women who may be of a lighter persuasion, not necessarily Caucasoid, but the women who may be, you know, um, third black, you know what I mean? You tend to pull out that coral, you know what I mean? You pull out that coral. Um, so like when you're pulling out the gravity that comes between human collision, right? Because like collision is a part in sight, it's a part in sound, it's a part in smell, it's a part in touch. You pull it out, right? And you notice that more women become attracted to the aura that is absorbing through the environment, right? Say someone is bad natured, right? Which means they always have a negative disposition. When your body starts to saturate with the sun, which means it's starting to relax from it, right? Because there's a such thing as having too much sun, right? When your body starts to relax from it, you tend to notice that others pick up on their radiance, not necessarily the energy, but the radiance. If you sweat on someone and you've been in the sun for 6 hours and they've only been in the sun for 10 minutes, right? They're going to have a spark. Like even if they're looking at you through a camera lens, right? They're going to have a spark, This is why I never get emotion. I'm always emotionless. I try to attack as much air as opposed to gravity, right? Gravity doesn't have air. When you attract air, right, you tend to levitate. You see? Tend to levitate. So this is Jigglypuff and Kirby. Jigglypuff and Kirby. Same sedum, the genius, the family, the kingdom. So the sun is important. The sun is important. Living in a tropical environment is important. This is why you look at places like Louisiana, it's important because it's close to water. You look at a place like Michigan, it's very important because it's surrounded by water. You look at a place like Florida, probably the most important. California, really important. You see what I mean? And then you have places that are inland that have rivers. Those places are very important too. I love being in the center of the United States, right? And the closest I've been into the center of the United States has been like, I want to say Mississippi, when I was in Mississippi, right? The memories that I have, right? It was a memory of feeling good. You know what I mean? It was a feeling good memory. My mother used to tell me that I used to sit in a bed of red ants, and I would do that every day. I would go outside with no pamper on, just a shirt, a little white t-shirt, and I have pictures of this, pictures of me like this, right? And I couldn't have been no more than like 4, 5 or something, and I would be there. The ants would just be eating me apart, and I wouldn't move, you know what I mean? And she would like, all them ants on you, all them ants. And then she would put me in the bathtub, you know, with bleach. You know what I mean? So being in the center of the earth, right? Like, take for instance, like a plains, you know, like you're in the middle of Montana, right? You know, I was in Minnesota. I really liked it. You know, I was in Minnesota, right? You tend to have more positive anxiety, you know. When you're near water, you always have like a negative anxiety, you know, if you overstay. And that's just from experience of being in Southeast Michigan. Like when you're in Minnesota, right? You know, all of these different elements and minerals and centers, you know, because center, that's a form of energy and that's a form of mineral. You're constantly moving, right? The balance of the coordination of that particular state, right? It pulls you, you know. It pulls you, you know, because like, think of the importance of river, right? As opposed to a lake, you know. People love rivers more than they love lakes. You know what I mean? Like, everybody talks about the Nile and Mississippi. You see? People have more of a out of love approach with the lake, you know, like Lake Michigan, right? Or the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf of America, right? But this is how it is. So do what you have to do, you know, get your sun. It's good for your brain. That's pretty much all I have to say. The sun is good for your brain. Great peace, Yakoki.